Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I am your host. And today I have the amazing Dan Riddle on the show. He is a guy that's been in aerospace for a very long time. He helps other people, including himself, create generational wealth through real estate investing. So, do me a favor and share this out and get a bunch of people on here. Let's listen to Dan Riddle and his story. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, let me go ahead and bring Dan on right now. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
I'm grateful to have you on here. I've had your wife on the show, Sharon, and y'all are a power couple.
I'd say
So,
so, but I'd say she's the better half, but that's okay.
yeah, she's awesome. So Dan, I started this show 5.5+ years ago, and it was literally to help people have a breakthrough in life and get unstuck, because I think a lot of people get stuck in life and just don't know which way to turn. So, I love starting with you kind of telling the audience where it all began for you, where you were born and raised.
I was born in Houston, Texas, December 9th, 1957. And
December 9th, that's my mom's birthday.
oh, okay, share it with an
Yeah.
important person then. Um,
Yeah.
I don't really claim Houston a whole lot because I moved to the Dallas Fort Worth area when I was 5, and I
I
pretty
think,
much grew up here.
well, most people from Houston don't really claim Houston.
Yeah, there's not
I'm
a you
kidding.
don't ever want to be there in August if it's over 90 degrees.
I,
Absolutely.
I've told people that my dad lived in Houston for like 13 years, and I was down there, and I was like, and I've been down there since then, and it's not just hot like it is here in Dallas in the summer. It's also humid, and
Very,
oh my Lord.
very, and even in the winter, it's too many gray skies and cloudy, and it's just Dallas Fort Worth is sort of happy medium in Texas.
Yeah.
Houston's all muggy and all of that. You can go to West Texas; it's dry as a bone, dust
Yeah.
storms, all that kind of stuff. But North Texas is about in the middle between that. It's a
Yeah.
little humid, but not near as much. And it's a great place to grow up. And
Yeah. Yeah.
guess where one of the number one cities are in growth and a lot of the factors right now. It happens to be DFW. So
It
we feel like
sure is.
we're in the epicenter of a lot of the opportunity today.
Yeah. DFW is a great area to be in. There's my friend Lolo over on X. Good morning, Lolo. Talk about, when did you move to the DFW area?
I was 5 years old. I
Okay.
was a little upset at first because if we'd stayed in Houston, they had kindergarten in public schools, but they did not in the Dallas area. So,
Oh.
so I had to wait till first grade to be able to go to
uh,
school. But it was a good move. My dad was in the oil industry, Atlantic Richfield, for
okay.
almost his whole career, and also he had opportunities at times. But one thing he told me when he got older, after he was retired, he shared more about each move he made. He started with them back in the 50s in Dallas.
Yeah.
Then he moved to Wichita for a few years. I have an older sister born there. Then he moved to Houston, where I was born, and a younger sister. And then he moved to Dallas. But later on, he told me that's like 6 months after he left out of Kansas, out of Wichita, they shut that operation down up there. And then when he moved from Houston to Dallas, which I was part of, They shut down that operation 6 months after he left there. He was never laid off, but he was
Wow.
at the head of it for his career. And then the rest of it, he stayed in the Dallas area. They moved him in different offices all over the place and all of that as they moved around and all. And
Yeah.
then, but then he hit a point later when he retired out. He did well. He taught me well. Both Sharon and I both have fathers that grew up on a farm. And Sharon's dad ended up being a construction contractor.
Yeah.
My dad got to go to college and get a college degree. And he really ingrained that in us. All I needed was 3 months in high school, my first job at McDonald's, to decide, yes, I'm going to college.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I don't want to do that, flip burgers. No, I don't want to do any of
No.
this. I want to do something bigger in the world and
Right.
all. But he was able, and he valued very highly to help us get through college. And so I bought into the traditional mantra, do well in school.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, when I graduated, there was another guy absolutely tied at the same GPA. I can't remember what it was, about 90 point something, but it absolutely tied. So I tied with a guy for 25th in my class, and then I went off to college and
Yeah.
started learning stuff. And I originally started in engineering. I worked at it hard for a couple of years, but I didn't totally like it. It was okay,
Yeah.
and I was slugging my way through, but I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I ended up changing and went to the business world. And when I was through searching through a couple of degree possibilities, I ended up in production operations management. And that's what I graduated with, a business degree in production operations management. And that leads you a lot of times into planning, scheduling of manufacturing operations, all that kind of stuff. And that's really where I ended up and all. And it was sort of fun in a way because it still demanded some technical side, some math skills, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
result
Yeah.
oriented, but it incorporated it. You were more involved with the people side of it too, working with others to make things happen. And
So,
also,
but how did you, because I know you're in aerospace, you've been in aerospace for, I think, 39 years. How did you end up in aerospace?
well, I did a couple of things. One thing that was a little interesting. I loved coming out of the bachelor's program broke so much. I did it twice. I also went back to school for a master's and came out broke again.
Wow.
But in between that, I had 3 years of a job, and it was more semiconductor related. And they were building, it was a little tiny company where I got to learn a lot of stuff. They were building small pieces of equipment for semiconductor labs where they did the research and on. That was good, but I learned what I could. It was a tiny little outfit, and I was ready to move on. But then I got the idea, I'd started working on the masters at night, and I said, it'd be sort of nice to just knock this out. So I put together a plan. I worked one more year at that outfit, and then I quit and went back. And I crammed. I think I did 18 hours one semester of grad school and 15 the other, which is pretty heavy load, but that's what it
Yeah.
took to get out. The one thing I misplanned, I got out in August of 1985. People don't hire as much in the fall, so I had to wait a
Oh,
little bit. But I got into aerospace, and it was actually a close family friend who was a flight test engineer with Bell Helicopter. And he actually talked with me a bit when I was talking about changing out of engineering. He helped me clarify where I was going and that I really enjoyed the people side more than just the technical side. I liked some of both. And he helped give me that guidance back when I made that major change in college in the bachelor's program. But when I got out with the MBA, he took my resume and he walked it all over Bell Helicopter trying to find the right place. And he found an area they had a need. And the first position I had was called a master scheduler. And actually, I have been involved in that discipline in that area for the whole 39 years since. And
wow.
but it was his commitment and his friendship that really, it comes down to who you know. And
Yeah.
he walked around till he found the right spot for me, and I worked and I started there. The
Yeah.
fun part of it is I'm a very unusual exception here. In 39 years, I've worked for two aerospace and defense companies, only two.
Wow.
Most people I know, contracts come, contracts go. It's up and down depending on who you're working for.
Right.
And people my age at this point, a lot of them have worked for half a dozen, maybe 10 different places by now.
Well, let me ask you this, because again, this is about having breakthroughs, right? And facing challenges. I think that a lot of people, and maybe you never had any like challenges where you had to decide whether you were going to eat or keep the electric on. I've had those,
Yes,
and I think a lot of the audience has, and so. Did you along this path, along this journey, did you ever face anything like, man, I have no idea if I'm going to be able to make my car payment, or I mean, have you ever had any challenges like
it's
that?
it's never been to a point where I was up against the wall and didn't have the money to pay for anything.
Yeah,
But there were definitely financial concerns. If
sure.
my first challenge that really I focused in on was I was there when they had the first flight of the V-22 Osprey. That's the tilt
Wow.
rotor, and there wasn't going to be a contract for 8 or 9 years or more. We knew they were downsizing; they had to. They had
Yeah.
flown it, proved it, all of that, but it wasn't going to have a contract. They were going to
Right.
downsize. And I got assured by the people I worked with, and I got married in 88.
Okay.
And so sitting in going 88 into 89, this was when we knew there was going to be cutbacks. There had to be. The
Yeah.
guys in my group said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about it too much. The most we've ever cut is 10%, which would have been about one person." Well, there was a guy in the group that was there less than I'd been. I'd been there 3 years. He'd been there a year and a half. So I had a position that I should be okay by everything they said.
Yeah.
Well, slight problem. He left of his own and went to GD, which became a part of Lockheed today.
Yeah.
And he left on his own and went somewhere else. I'm like, oh no, I'm low man on the totem pole. So I started looking immediately.
Yeah.
And I was concerned because I hadn't been married very long, and we didn't have a lot of money put aside. I could be vulnerable.
Yep.
So I went to looking and looking, and I had interviewed with a subsidiary of the Boeing company and went on with that. I didn't hear back from it at first, so I called them back and all, and they had changed. The person I interviewed with had left the company. That wasn't
Wow.
exactly making me feel real great about it. But
Yeah.
anyway, they put me in touch with other people. Ultimately, when was that? That was June 3rd of 1989. I got
Okay.
laid, I got laid off. I was cut,
Wow.
and I didn't know what I had coming yet.
Right.
I was concerned. Fortunately, I went through all the ups and downs and thinking about what's next and all of that over the weekend. And Monday morning, I got a call from Boeing, and they wanted to hire me. So I experienced layoff for 2 days. So I feel very, very thankful.
Yeah.
But
That's not very terrifying.
it's your first time to really face that, and all of
Yeah.
that can be. And
Yeah. Sure.
even while I was Boeing, another couple of years, one time I was still in a master scheduling kind of role, and they had a company wide um, a series of meetings a week long in Seattle, bringing people from all over the Boeing organization there,
Yeah.
all master schedulers, all these different plants, and all. It's cool to meet these different people from all over. But I remember coming in about the third day of that, and they came and said, "Hey, the master schedulers, there were three of them there, had to go back to their plant because their program, it was some sort of retrofit to an A1 aircraft. I don't even know much about that aircraft. Their contract got canceled just on the whim, on a moment.
Yeah.
It probably was working up to that over time, but government can cancel a contract at their convenience anytime they want.
Yep.
You are not just free and clear all the time. You could be
Right.
vulnerable.
Right.
So,
Right.
so that stayed in my mind. And what I still didn't have the trigger there because I did well with the Boeing company. I eventually got into management, and things went great for me. I enjoyed being there, close to home. I had a 12-minute drive to work.
Right.
It was just wonderful. At that time, our daughter was very young, like
Now,
3.
was that here in DFW?
Yes, still
Okay.
here in DFW. I'm in Denton, which is the furthest most um, of the cities that would be
Yep.
considered part of the Dallas Fort Worth metroplex.
Yeah.
So it's still in the city and all. So I got to spend lots of time. I got to be the drop off and pick up dad with my young daughter.
Yeah.
That was priceless, and that
Yeah.
was great. But my biggest wake up call, that really hit me hard was the results of 9/11. When the Boeing company analyzed everything, and that horrible day, it is most of us remember where we were that day,
Yeah.
what we were doing, who we called, which typically was your spouse and your family,
Yeah.
all of that, and the horrible thing that happened. For me, though, I sort of pretty quickly said, okay, what's Mother Boeing going to do here?
Right.
And they came out about 2, 3 weeks later and said they were cutting production by half, 50%. Never seen anything that big before.
Right.
And, first reaction, everybody hears that is like, who's going to get ahead? That's 50%. That's half of the people have to leave. We had 1,800 people at that site. 900 would leave.
Yeah.
And I was in management. So I had to rank my people. I had to work with my upper management to define, okay, here's my ranking of each of these 11 people. 6 of them are leaving. 5 of them will stay. I got lucky, but I remembered that. I was like, that could be me. I spent about 2 weeks wondering, okay, am I going? I started looking around and looking for other opportunities. I actually found a couple possible ones, but they were clear across the country in Georgia. Didn't know anybody there. I'd be taking my young daughter away from grandparents that lived a mile away, stuff like that. It's like, I can't do that to my family just to try to advance myself. And
Right.
so I sat tight with it, but I said, I need a better plan. I need something else. What are
Yeah.
my alternatives? What do I want the end game to be on my own terms?
Right.
Leaving a W 2 job, not just being laid off and you're gone. I don't want that for my family. I don't want it for me. So I seriously started looking at what are my alternatives. And that got highlighted even further a year, just almost a year and a half after that. The Boeing company sold us to another group. And we found out pretty quick what they were going to be like. They wanted to minimize cost, minimize staff. They didn't even buy the building. They just wanted to lease a building. In all their other plants, that organization only had 500 there. And at that time, we had about 850, 900. So they were cutting more.
Yep.
At that point, I went into high motion, high gear because I got downsized in that big cut back into an individual role. My pay was over the salary range for that group that I was put into.
Mm.
I'm like, it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
Have to execute something else. That's when I looked really hard. I went to some seminars, various things to, and at the end of the day, I had a couple of things I was looking at, but I narrowed it down. Real estate. That just seemed to be the best thing to go. You
Yeah.
could, you could make money multiple ways. I could potentially build that up to just replace my W 2 job. And
Sure.
that was the plan and all. It got funny though. We started our business in March of 2005.
Oh Lord.
In May of 2005, I got a phone call. It was a guy I used to work with at Bell Helicopter, and he had been made a supervisor. He was the only master scheduler left in Fort Worth. His previous management before that day when he called me, he was saying, hey, we've got this other software and stuff that can make all that do. We don't need a bigger staff. Well, that management changed because that wasn't working out well. And the manager that came over him then said, hey, you're now a supervisor. I want you to rebuild a team. You need to have a team. And so he called me and said, hey, would you like to come back? I'm like, hey, I'll come talk to you because I was in something that I was there for, I think another year maybe.
Right.
And we'd already started in the real estate. But that came up. Sharon and I talked for a little while and we went over alternatives and all. And it made sense to take that job. Is going to get me in a better place. I wasn't going to be paid over the range. I was going to have the chance for upward mobility, all of that. At that time, she was working in a contract job. What ended up happening is I was planning on replacing my W 2, but in reality, at that end, we sort of switched spots. Sharon took the W 2, went out of the W 2 world, and I took the new job and went back to Bell Helicopter. And I've been there ever since. So, as a family,
Isn't that where you started, Bell Helicopter? Isn't that what you said?
right back where I started.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
So the way I've told people when I came back, it's sort of funny in a way, because when I came back for several months, it's like every corner I turned, I'd run into somebody I knew when I was there before,
Yeah,
or I'd run into people who I knew from Boeing. Some of those that had to leave the company when we
yeah,
downsized, and I was meeting all these people I'd been around so long, so it was cool. It was really fun to be back. And here's the irony of all of it that is my favorite part of it. Right now, we are working on the next generation of the tilt rotor. It's the next generation, that V22 they did when I was there in the 80s. And it's cool to be there, and it's fun. We
yeah,
did meet our objective, though. Initially, I was going to replace my W 2 with the real estate. It ended up replacing Sharon's W 2 with the real estate, and I kept working.
yeah.
I loved what I was doing. I was there at a great time, and really, I'm just getting the point these last couple of years. I'm saying, it's about time to plan my exit, and but we hadn't looked back. Sharon was the full time real estate professional. I'm not talking about a realtor. She's the
Right,
one that focused on that as her job, day job.
right.
I helped with it all along. So we were in total partnership, doing everything we did, and I don't regret a bit of it, because we're positioning ourselves to be in a wonderful place to imagine. Some people are worried. I don't want this to happen. Hope to God nothing happens to Social Security and Medicare for people who retire. We're going to be in the place we don't have to worry about it. It won't matter.
Right.
We don't
Right.
want anyone to suffer that, but we're going to be fine no matter what they do. And that's
I
that's the path we're heading down.
I think I mean, well, I think a lot of people have said that Social Security is going to be a thing of the past in a very short period of time, especially if we don't get debt under control in this country.
Yeah,
But um, you know, who knows? I think Grant Cardone's a buddy of mine. I keep hearing him talk about and other people talking about, you know, ending the Fed and a lot of other things. We'll see what happens. It's I think 2025 is going to get interesting when it comes to all
definitely.
that. Yeah. So, but talk about. I know a lot of people in the real estate space. In fact, I remember when I was 16, maybe 15, 16, my brother-in-law got you remember the old Carlton sheets?
Oh yeah, a
Um,
lot of people started there.
yeah, and here's another buddy of mine, former owner of Little Giant Ladders, Doug Wing,
Okay.
and he says that real estate is the way. Amen. So talk about how you got into you got into the real estate. What like there's so many I mean, were you flipping houses? Were you doing
Sure.
multifamily? Were you buying duplexes? What were you doing in the real estate space in the beginning?
Well, the first thing, and this is the most important decision for anyone to make, and I don't care if it's just real estate, it could be some other thing. Learn what you're doing. Go find the
Yeah.
people that can help you learn how to do it. You don't need to be exploring and making all the rookie mistakes all by yourself. You need to avoid the ones you can. And so we hooked up with a group. It's called Russ Whitney out of Florida, and they had a training program. And we elected to start. We were going to start with single family. Why do most people, the vast majority of real estate investors over time, usually start with single family? Why? It's something you understand. You may have already bought a house before, and it's pretty easy to get into if you have decent credit. So there's lots of avenues there to get started. and all, you're not going to probably jump into immediately multi-million-dollar apartments or office buildings or anything like that. It's easier there. So that's what we did. And we went through they had a number of training things, and they went through a lot of different areas of it. One of them is the flipping, wholesaling, they call it in that group. You can also do stuff where you turn around and finance somebody into the house. And what we initially started to do, we wanted to take these houses, retail them out, and actually look for a buyer or someone that would eventually own it. And that's what we started doing. Well, we started in 05. What happened in 07, 08?
You did, and you got really, really rich.
No, it didn't do
I'm
that.
kidding. I'm
that's
kidding.
when that's
It
when
crashed.
everybody was in struggling.
Yeah.
People that were going to buy these houses from us had very hard time getting a loan. And I
Yep.
was like, well, that ain't going to work. So we just sort of moved over to a buy and hold strategy. We're just going to
Yeah.
buy and hold it and work it until it made sense to sell it or expand or whatever. So that's what we did. We adjusted real quickly to that. It played off well, and we got some really good deals on houses. The best deals we got in single family were in 08, 09, 2010. At one point, we were picking up HUD houses.
Yep.
It really went well, and we had no complaints. We were doing fine,
Yep.
but then we were sort of hitting another wall. That came 2012, 2013. A lot of people weren't interested in real estate in Texas as much back in 05, 06 when everything was hot across the country. They would rather
Sure.
go into Vegas or California or whatever because you were getting double digit appreciation and you could make a lot of money. Texas was boring. Typical appreciation was 4 or 5% a year. And it wasn't as exciting for people to be in. But in 11, 12, 2013, we started having double digit appreciation. And so there was one day in 2013, I sort of did a calculation. We had stayed sort of small, 10 houses or less. We would turn some occasionally and get others and all, just because we were still raising a young daughter and involved in her life and a lot of things happening. But it worked for us. But then we were ready to scale up. Let's scale up. We need to get bigger. And I did a little calculation. I said, all right, to replace my W 2 at this point in time, how many houses we need? And I came up with a number, I think it was 33 or 34. And we're sitting there, I think we had 9 at the time. And I'm like, with this kind of appreciation going on, Sharon was throwing out offers every week. And almost every one of them come back and got sold. They just disappear.
Wow.
That houses that need $30,000 worth of work, we're selling for retail price.
Right.
And you can't do that in single family world. You have to buy at a discount. If you don't get the discount right, you won't make money.
Right.
And we had a discipline in place, which is good.
Now you're talking about if you're flipping them, right?
Now I'm talking about even to just buy them and rent them out and hold
Oh,
them. You could
okay.
do that. But the problem was on the buying end, it was very hard to get the appropriate pricing
Yeah.
unless you really got into the very low end. And we were
Right.
trying to stick with 70s, 80s, mid 70s to mid 80s houses. And
Right.
it worked. We worked well with that, and we would have loved to just build more to get more of them. But when you're paying retail price for something that needs a bunch of rehab to it, that's not a good formula. You're not going to, you could long term. If you have the cash flow from other places and you got money to invest in it, long term, you could have still worked that. And that's what I said. Hey, we're going to have to slug it out. It's going to take a while because of the pricing. And that's when we came back and had a little conversation, said, maybe it's time to put them under one roof. We had talked very early on in 05 that we might look at apartments someday. Well, that day arose. And so in 2015, we got involved in apartment investing and have never looked back. And it's a whole lot better. There's nothing wrong with any part of real estate. There's nothing wrong with single family houses. You can do that and do well.
Yeah.
But we wanted to scale up. And if you really want to scale, the multifamily space makes a lot more sense because in that area, It's like I've explained to single family investors before, is saying, well, why do you want to do that? I said, well, could you buy every house on one block, have them all right there next to each other? And of course you can't. That's just not possible unless you're doing build to rent type thing, building them from scratch. You can't do that. I said, but that's what an apartment's like. You can go to one site and have 100 to 200 units right there on that property. You can bring in, it's at scale, so you can bring in professional property management that actually run the day to day, and
Yeah.
you become more of the CEO role. You are the one that gives the direction, puts the plans together, and is responsible. But you don't have to be there every day dealing with each tenant as they come in and worrying about the detail. You have people that do that for you. It's
And you said you started that in 2015 ish.
15.
So Doug, I have Doug's comment on the screen. I don't know how many they have. I know they have, him and his two partners have thousands and thousands of apartments,
Yeah,
and they're just killing it. And
we've
that's, he said they own their own property management company too, which is
that's
really
another way to vertically integrate and do more. That's
yeah,
can be done.
yeah,
I know a number of operators that do that.
yeah,
But the big thing is you're getting into something that you can scale more, you make more money, and you're not having to run over to that property every day to take care of everything. And
right.
it just makes so much sense. We've been in
I
at this point 18, 18 different multifamily investments. About half of
wow,
them have turned and gone full cycle. And it
wow,
works. It works. And it's a little tighter the last 2 years. It's a
yeah,
little harder now, but you can still get there. And here's the good news why I think this is the best place to be. And it's really two reasons, but here's the best reason right now. There's virtually no new construction being planned right now on apartments in most parts of the country. They're just not planning new ones. You go drive around, you'll find some that are being constructed. They're already in process. They're building a whole right now, not planning to build more.
right,
And we don't know exactly how long that'll last, year, two, three, we don't know.
yeah,
They're creating a hole that's going to be there 3, 4, 5 years out.
yep,
So that's right now. We're excited about this coming year. This is the best time, could be the best time ever,
yep,
because we feel like we're back when we bought some of those houses at great prices in the Great Recession.
yeah,
We're almost in that same place, and we know there's not enough housing. I know in Texas, DFW area where we live, they never caught up from the shortages from the Great Recession,
right.
and they're not building more apartments now.
Well, I'll tell you, I live in Salina, and they
Okay,
are definitely building apartments here like you
there's
would not believe. It's insane.
yeah, I'm right here in Denton. There's
Yeah,
about 4 or 5 significant large complexes in the process of construction now.
yeah.
But the actual starting to plan a new one from scratch, getting the
Oh,
land, all of that stuff, that's
yeah,
where it stopped.
yeah,
That creates a hole later on. So
yep,
that means, guess what? They built a ton of apartments up through now. They're finishing out some now.
yeah,
Those will eventually fill up, probably
yep,
fairly quick. Dallas is
yep.
one of the fastest growing metroplexes in the country,
It is.
percentage wise. They'll fill up.
Yeah,
But if they don't start building more now, what does that mean for 4 or 5 years out?
right,
You
right.
will have another shortage, and it will create, as one person, big operator we like to deal with, the group I'm part of is out of Madera. They're out of Lubbock, Texas. And one of the key acquisition guys at that place was in an event we were just a couple of months ago. And he's saying, you get into stuff now, you're going to have a lot of tailwinds 4 and 5 years out that'll
Yeah,
make it better, and you don't have as much risk. Yeah, with the high when we had the high interest rates, the higher ones than now,
yeah,
and when the inflation was so high, that's sort of a scary time. We seem to be have gone past it. I'm not sure it's totally over yet. We could see a second wave maybe, but if we're past that, then we're going to be going to a really good time coming up. So,
Yeah. Well, Shirley says, and it's funny she asks this question because I talked to a guy last night about this. Would it be a good idea to invest in 55 plus housing? I'm really good friends with Vinny Chopra,
okay.
who's very well known in that
Hmm.
space, and he's kind of a legend when it comes to investing. But that he has a lot of the, I don't know what they call them, extended care.
Okay.
I'm not sure what they. I always called them old folks' homes, but
Yeah.
apparently that's not what you call them anymore.
Yeah, it's a specialized area, and there is
Yeah,
room for that because there's a lot of people that are going to need a place to live and all.
yeah,
Um,
baby boomers.
sure. For me personally, I say, where's my greatest advantage? There's a wave of people in the younger generations coming along. I
Yeah,
like being in just the open area, open multifamily, not constrained by anything else, not assisted housing, not because it puts other constraints, and it also it's not typically they don't move as easily when you want to sell, when you're ready to sell. So that for myself and my partner Sharon, we like staying into the basic apartment space that's going to go to the general public and as few constraints as possible. And that gives our options open to be able to hold it as long as we want to, and when the time is right, to be able to move it easily and sell it. And that's, I know a few operators that are in the senior living space,
yeah.
and they have told me and noted that, well, it takes a little longer to get the transaction done.
I think, I look at my brother-in-law and then his son, my nephew. My nephew was an F-16 pilot for he. I think he retired at after 20 years, but
Hmm.
he now he flies for Delta, but he could walk away from any job that he want. My 40-year-old nephew or 38-year-old nephew, that he could walk away from his job right now because he's already, he's done very extremely well in, and again, now I know that, I don't know what my brother-in-law has anymore. I think at one point it was in the 500 door range,
Yeah.
but they were mostly, single family homes and duplexes and triplexes and quads, and his son followed in that same path. And they, I've had conversations with them because I have friends like Doug Wing
Hmm.
and you and Sharon and Grant Cardone and Vinny Chopra and all these people that are doing, and Hua and Jaime, who are good
Yep.
friends, and that are doing all these big syndication deals. Are you guys doing syndication deals?
Yes, that's everything we've done has been a syndication, and we've been
Okay.
in different sizes. Though we've been in as little as 88 units up to over. We got one we're in right now that's over 400. And
Wow.
to me, my preference is more in the middle. I
Mhm.
really would like, right now with the pricing had gone up so much per door, was high enough and all, that right now I think we're trying to focus more in the 100 to 150 range and maybe own more properties, but keep them a little smaller. Part of that is the reality of raising money for it because it's a lot more money involved. There, a lot
Yeah.
more per
Yeah.
door. When we started, you could get Class C apartments anywhere from like 60 to 70K a door. Now it's, particularly in the Metroplex, it's 140, 150 a door or more, depending on what it is. And also it's a lot more expensive per door. And of course, you have the challenge now. There's a lot of people that don't see the opportunity that's out there or may just not understand it. And
Right.
and so there's a lot of people running scared. In fact, at one point last year, we've been actively pursuing deals. Um, we had one of the brokers tell Sharon that people out of your mentor group, hardly anybody's doing anything. A lot of them were coming out of Grant Cardone's group, the ones that were actually going out there and buying properties. And I thought that was surprising, but things are starting to turn even in the group we're in. And it's, you have to be committed to it and understand what you're seeing, but the opportunity is incredible. And the big thing too that some people don't understand, you can work yourself to death in a W-2 and you'll pay 40% of your income in taxes. You think, oh, I'm so smart, I'll become an expert in something. I'll go out and be an expert. So I'll work for myself and be self employed and I'll make more money, which is true. But you're going to pay 60%, somewhere in that order, on your taxes. So then you start saying, well, how do I do something smarter than this? Your next logical thing is to start thinking about how does a business operate? A business pays tax on their net operating income. They take out most of the expenses, and especially that one special thing that's really terrific on any kind of real estate is depreciation. You can get depreciation. All that lowers your tax footprint. If you own a business, you'll typically pay 20% taxes. And if you invest and do it well and learn what you're doing and really get after it, you can actually pay zero taxes. What else gives you that opportunity? It's like that's a no-brainer decision to me. And we have greatly reduced our taxes through the depreciation. We had the 2017 law that came in starting in 18. You could take 100% bonus depreciation. That means all of the stuff in there, the fixtures, the flooring, all of the various appliances, everything, the contents of that apartment, you could get 100% of the depreciation in year one. That's is starting to phase out right now. There is a chance, an opportunity that with the new administration, they may try to come back to that and extend it. We didn't get into real estate because of that, because it didn't exist back then. I'd be in this space regardless, but that's an extra bonus that could really, really reduce your taxes and have a huge impact to what you can do. And I can't overstate the opportunity that's there.
I mean, I don't think I guess I had the great Brian Tracy on the show several years, couple, 2, 3 years ago. And I remember Brian, he's a legend. And he's like,
Mhm.
when he was talking, he's like, you got to write it down, write it down, write it down. He's teaching. He's always in teaching mode, even if he's on a podcast. And I said, Brian, here's the thing, all of these people are gonna hear what you're saying, and they know in their deep in their soul that you're right. They need to do these things, but at the end of the day, 99% of them aren't going to do it, and they know they need to, but they're not going to do it. They know that that's the path to success. It makes sense. It's logical, but they're not going to do it. And I said, how do you get those people that are like that? How do you get them to change and actually start doing the work? And he goes, and I was waiting on this brilliant answer. He goes, you can't. I'm like, that's not a
Well,
brilliant answer. Yeah,
what
but
it takes is a commitment.
yeah,
And sometimes people have to be triggered by something to wake up. To a large degree, that's what I experienced. There are certain things that happen. I wasn't on the street with no money and no place to live. I never hit that level. But I had enough things happen that made me think, hmm. And what really drove me when we got sold that time, when Boeing sold us, I'm like, I don't want to go to a new company and have to start over, build your reputation, all of that stuff. I was getting at an age at that point in that I don't want to just have to rebuild everything. I want to move to the next best thing. And so that made me really think through it and saying, just sitting here, and there's something I put in, something I kicked out a while back, that you're never secure as long as you're relying on a W-2 job. You're
that's
never
right.
totally secure. Something can happen. That
Yep.
company can go down in an instant. I mean, think of
Yep.
all the different companies you've seen that aren't here anymore.
In 08, 09, my wife, we weren't married at the time. That's about when we met, but she was the global vice president of marketing for two different $500 million plus
Hmm.
companies in her career, and in '08 or '09, right in that time frame, they were bought by a venture capital company. Her entire marketing department was eliminated and
Yep.
outsourced, and here she was making a really hefty salary, and and in that, if you remember, during the crash, in those years, there was nobody. She has a blue blood resume. Nobody's hiring VPs of marketing in '08 and '09.
Called
So
overqualified.
right, and so that's when we started dating, and then I'm like, you're kind of unemployed, and I have this web development company, and it would just make sense. And so now we run our businesses together, and it's
Cool.
it's it's wonderful, and we don't have to have that W-2 job, thank God. And I can't, I've been an entrepreneur my entire adult life for the most part. I make a horrible employee, and I always try to encourage people to look a little deeper. There's something in there that's driving you. But I want to ask you a question, about y'all's strategy when it comes to, let's say you buy through a syndication deal, you buy a 400 door complex.
Hmm.
And is that something that you buy, and then, is your strategy, I'm going to buy this and flip it in the next 2 years, or I'm going to buy it and sit on it for 7 to 10 years or 20, or
Right.
what's your strategy
The
with that?
strategy we're going to follow is not to sit on it forever. My
Okay.
impression of apartments back before I knew anything about it through the years is I've known of people that own apartments and they just own it forever, just about, and they
Yeah, right.
refi. Okay, every 10 years or so, they'd refi and get more money to rejuvenate it, rehab, whatever was needed to improve it. Because I don't care what you're living in. Once you're there about 5 years or so, it needs improving again. It needs to be repainted. Things need to be done to it. And the big incentive, and people do it different ways, but you can get some pretty good loans out there. And some of them, it changed a little bit the last 2 years. In some of the government backed loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, if you went back to when we started in 2015, you could include your capital improvements in that loan. You still had to come up with a bit of down payment and all that, but it could cover part of the capex, and that made it a great advantage because you come in with that loan from the beginning. You got money in that loan for the capital improvements at that point. The key is you're probably going to spend that in the first 2 to 3 years, and that's going to improve things. It will help your apartment draw more people. They'll be willing to pay more rents because you improved it. Other things you've done operationally to make it a better business. I mean, you buy an apartment based on the net operating income. When you're ready to sell it, it's going to be based on the net operating income. And so
Right.
your job is to take it and improve it, make it a
Yeah.
better community than it is today, improve it where it needs it, fix things that need to be fixed, get it in a better place, and it'll be worth more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
The money you have for that loan is going to run out as far as covering the capital improvements at some point. Then you got to make a choice. You can sell it at that point, which typically has been more like 4 or 5 years, about 5 years out.
Okay.
We've seen some that went shorter, some that went longer, but that's about 5 years. Then you can just sell that and go to the next one. And guess what? Somebody else, whoever you sell it to, will get a loan and come in and they will use some similar model to do about the same thing.
Yeah.
Take it where it is, improve it, fix the things that have deteriorated or wrong, take it to the next level, and it'll be worth more. That's one way of doing it. Now, if you want to hold it longer, that can be done. And some people do that. And what we've seen over and over, we've been in 18 deals. Half of them had turned full cycle. I'm saying the 5 year range. Some went faster, some went a little longer. I have one right that's going to sell in the next few months that will have been in it, be 10 years next September, but it'll sell before then. But most of them have been in that 5 range. And to me and Sharon, that makes sense. Do everything you can with it to improve it. You're basically buying a business. Now improve it, get it running real smooth as best as you can do, improve everything you can. Now it's worth more money, then sell it. Somebody else can come back and take that model, or if they want to hold it forever, that's their choice. And we can go from apartment to apartment and have more assets as we go and get where we need to be. We've had, I think, total of 3,500 doors or so far.
Okay. What is, because I again, I don't keep track of what Grant is doing and how big his operate. I know it's gotten massive. Um, last I heard, he had over 10,000 doors. That may be even higher than that now.
Yeah,
Um,
that wouldn't
how
surprise me.
how would somebody like you and Sharon or anybody like me or anybody that wants to
Mhm.
go to that Cardone capital level, or to really go, I want 10, 20,000 doors in my portfolio, how does somebody do that? What's the do you know the secret to doing that?
It's not real secret. What we've been involved in strictly is syndications. It's group
Yeah.
purchases. It's really group
Right.
purchase. Now,
Right.
Grant Cardone and a lot of what he's doing is more of a fund.
Yeah.
It's and I know he coaches a lot of people. I know some people have been coached by him that are doing some of those things too, and but they'll be on their own doing stuff. They're not necessarily just investing in Grant's funds.
Right.
His main funds, I think, behave more like a REIT where you can put your money in, and it's almost like putting it in the stock market. It will increase in value over time. If you go that route, you may not, if you're just a participant in it, you may not get the depreciation. That may not be fed to it. The key for us is we're doing strictly in syndications. In syndications, you get a share of that. Every limited partner gets a share of that. Obviously, the general partners that run the deal get a bigger share of it, but they have a chance to actually get through K1s. They get their percentage of the depreciation to help them out too.
Right.
We're really committed to that model.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that Grant does that a lot. He may be teaching some to do it. I don't know. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to just be in a fund. I can put a fund
Right.
in a REIT. And a lot
Yeah.
of the stuff you see on the internet coming down all the time is you get out there and you'll see, come join this fund. And a lot of the stuff on your text you get every day say that. They go get into real estate by going, no, I don't want to be in real estate unless I get the depreciation.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. I mean, that's what makes most sense.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what Grant's doing specifically with all of that.
Um,
But he's a shaker and a mover, and a
yeah.
lot of people hate him, and but I
I've
don't. I
I've
think the
seen him
guy's
speak.
brilliant.
I've heard him speak several times, and I have
Yeah.
nothing against him at all. I love his
Yeah.
story. He comes
Yep.
from a hard story where he did have a situation where he had to worry about being able to eat. He
Yep.
comes from a very hard luck story from his early life, and
Yep.
I admire him for his resilience to get where he is.
Yep.
And when you see someone who's accomplished all that, you got to listen to them. You got to pay attention and respect it. And all
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you want to do it exactly like them. And
Yeah, no. Everybody's got their own path, but I now, are you and Sharon, are you guys doing any educating folks on all this?
you have to always be doing that. Now, we don't have our own podcast. I don't know. Sharon may evolve to that pretty quick. Who knows? But education is the key there. You got to develop. Bottom line is, if you're going to be in syndications, you need limited partners that want to
Yeah.
invest. So there's education comes with it. You have to be teaching people, helping people understand how it works.
Yeah.
Because if they don't understand how it works, they probably shouldn't be investing in it. and all.
It's the truth. It's the
But
truth.
there's so much out there in the real estate space. We will probably expand at some point in the next few years to do. I'm starting to think of some other things, maybe like storage buildings or some other things that still real estate, but
Yep.
to diversify a little more. But
I have a friend, he may actually be watching right now, that I know I don't know the numbers, but he's doing millions and millions and millions in the storage space. I mean, he's doing some, you know, from the ground up
Okay.
storage stuff too. So, but he's also buying some existing ones. But
Sure.
that man, to me, I have a storage unit because houses in Dallas are smaller than they are in Ohio. Um, for the I mean, well, the money part is it's literally double the price here, but
Right.
you know, when we moved here, I'm like, geez, we got more stuff from our old house that won't fit
Yep.
in this new house, and so I had to rent, and I'm like, and so I just started doing the math, and these are cheap. I mean, they're not probably not cheap, but
Yep.
I'm like, wait a minute, this is insane because like I'm paying almost $200 a month for a little box, and there's
Mhm.
like 6,000 other little boxes in this complex, and I'm like,
Yep.
this is crazy. Somebody is really cleaning up here. This is
Yes.
nuts.
It's a we haven't really dug into it yet. As with everything else, we need to go learn first. You
Right?
know,
Yeah.
but it is, and it's more cash oriented. You get more of a monthly cash flow out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas the apartments, it's a longer term investment. It really
Yeah.
is, and
Yeah.
to gain the ultimate growth and wealth and net worth and all of that, it's a longer term process. And
Yeah.
so we're mainly because of the last 2 years with that high inflation and stuff. You said, well, it'd be nice to put some money in some other things that are more cash flow oriented. And
Yeah.
so we're looking and considering some other options in that regard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's just going to be to play a balance against the longer term what we do in multifamily.
It's real life Monopoly that y'all are playing.
Yeah, it is, and it's great. And,
Yeah.
having that apartment versus each individual house. At one
Yeah.
point in time, we had houses from southwestern Arlington. That's south of sort of mid cities between Dallas
Yeah.
and Fort Worth. Is a
Yeah.
little closer to Fort Worth. Had one on the south side of Dallas in a suburb down there, and we had them clear up to Denton. We're on the far northern extreme. So,
Jeez.
so well, a lot of times if it was down, I have to work in my day job. My W-2's in Fort Worth. So
Okay.
if something was going on down there, Sharon called me and said I'd go by and check on it after work. And so we'd
Wow.
cover it that way where we could and all, but
Yeah.
still it's spread out, takes your time to get there. And I had one of the best tenants I had was that house on the south side of Dallas where um, they paid me electronically. Didn't have to go out there very much. If anything was wrong with that, I had a handyman I could send over there. And so that was very low maintenance, and I love that. And all that was the best case. There were a lot more cases in the single family space where we just had to be there physically and do what we had to do. And so we love our life now.
I think you know, people need to learn from people like you. And is there a way? Do y'all have a website?
Yes, we do. It's www.
Hang on,
Okay.
I'm gonna put it up in the thing here. Let me just get to that screen and throw it up here. Okay, it's www dot.
Excalibur. This is spelled funny. Excalibre.
Hold on, Calibre
Texas.
Texas.
.com.
Excaliburtexas.com. I'm going to throw it up on the
Okay.
screen here and you tell me if I got it right or not. There it comes.
You got it perfect.
Awesome.
BRE. Yeah, somebody had already stole the spelling of the BUR that you saw in Excalibur the movie.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
already stole that and had that, so we had to flip a few letters to make it work. So
That happens. That
yeah,
happens. So everybody go over to excaliburtexas.com. That's EXCALIBRE Texas.com and chat with Dan and or Sharon. I now can say that I know both of you. I've known Sharon now for I don't know a year or two, and but you guys really got it going on. That's really that's
yeah.
great stuff, man.
When they go on that website, there's an opportunity to leave their contact information and make an appointment,
Yeah,
so we can
yeah,
get back with them and talk to them and see where their next step is. And if they're a beginner, we can help. If they're much more experienced, we can help. you know,
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
we just look
That's
forward to helping others discover what we have. We have a
yeah.
daughter that went to a very good school in Denver, has no student debt whatsoever. She's now working, living, and she thinks she's in her dream job in D.C., Washington, D.C. And I just tell her, you go save the world. But guess
Wow.
what? Our next investment we do, we're putting together a new LLC where she will be a 50% partner,
Yeah.
equal partner with us to invest in real estate. She's first event, big event she went to in the group we're in. Grant Cardone was the guest speaker. The second
Mm,
year, it had not just Grant Cardone, it had Robert Kiyosaki there as well, which was
wow.
exceptional. And we
Yeah.
got to have our picture with him.
Yeah.
And before that was over, she asked, "Can I have a picture with you?" He broke his own rules. He normally would not give more than one picture to a family or group, but he lights up when he sees a young person. He loves to see young people. And he's like, "Yes, let's take a picture." The photographer said, "But," he said, "No, we're going to do this." And she got her
Wow.
picture with him. She was
That's awesome.
so excited. She was in her first job up at DC out of college. I told her who was coming. She says, "I want to go." And she offered to pay her own plane ticket when she was
Wow.
very little money coming out of school. And I was like,
Wow.
if you're going to do that, I'll do something I've never done. We went VIP through the whole event so we could eat lunch around Kiyosaki and Grant Cardone and the others there, and
Yeah.
got that meet and greet with them. It's just like she's convinced she is going to carry this forward with the next generation of wealth in our family tree.
I gotta say this, and Grant. I mean, I've heard it forever. I've been in self development for a long, long time, and the people that you get around is the your network is definitely your net worth. And I'm writing a multi author book. I think Sharon's planning on doing a chapter in it. And it's all about the power of your network, and it's called the network effect. And the story you just told, being around Robert Kiyosaki and Grant Cardone. I'm friends with Sharon Lecter and all of these other amazing people that being around and teaching your children that, like, the power of getting around the right freaking people. There's nothing more important, in my opinion, when it comes to business. And you talked about it earlier with Boeing and all the different, you were able to reposition based on making some phone calls.
Absolutely. And actually, the funniest part of that is when my daughter said, "I want to come," I said, "Well, you hadn't even read any of his books." She said, "But Dad, you've been telling me our house is not an access; it's an asset since I was 6 years old." And I'm like, "Okay, you."
Right.
They are paying attention.
They are.
Help them turn the corner and take it to the next generation.
And I think that any parent watching, if you have children, I don't know what the youngest age, but read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
It's a great start.
Yeah.
Actually, I love another book he had. It's called Second Chances. I like that better than the original and all the others because it went into more detail of some of the whys, how he got where he was, and some of the people he was around that he picked up some of this from.
Yeah.
And all. In fact, the only thing shocking about Robert Kiyosaki when you first meet him, his language may surprise you, but I found out real quick though. I realized right off the bat he's a salty Marine. He's served in
Uh,
Vietnam. All of that
yeah.
makes sense. In fact,
Yeah.
my favorite time, last time I got to see him at an event 2 years ago, he came in. I told him, "Hey, I work for Bell Helicopter. You flew one of our birds." He flew Hueys in Vietnam. And he just really, and he's getting older now. He doesn't get around as well, but
Right.
talk about the influence. I don't agree with everything he says, but
Sure.
some of those concepts can change your life.
They can. They will.
Yes,
If
they
you
will.
let them,
If
they will.
if you decide to take some action and do it, and
That's right.
that's what it takes. It's work,
Yep.
but
It's
it
true.
pays off a lot better than that W-2 job.
It does. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think that if people want to learn how to build, part of what your bio that you sent me for to be on this show was about building generational wealth. Grant says it. His kids. I interviewed him the day after he did Undercover Billionaire. I was the only one that was given that opportunity,
Wow.
and it was phenomenal. And what we were talking about, there was a point where he was flying his jet. He has a really nice Gulfstream 700 or 650, I think, or
Hmm.
maybe 550. I don't know, but he's flying his kids and his family around the world. They're just going to Dubai and different places. And I go, dude, I saw the reel you did with your kids getting on the jet. And he goes, can you believe that shit, man? And I go, no. He goes, he goes, I can't even imagine. Like my kids they don't know anything outside of that. So
Yep.
like they're, we can really touch the minds of our children and help them, expand their thinking and leave generational wealth is not necessarily about just the money. It's about the mindset. And
It's a
I
different headset.
it is, man. I'm so Daniel, Dan, you told me to call you Dan. I think you're phenomenal, and I'm so grateful that you came on and invested the time today. It's been great.
Well, it's a great way to sort of close out the year and with anticipation for a new one.
I'm pretty excited about the new administration coming in 2025 and everything happening. Because we got to go up from here.
Yeah, I think there's a few foundational things that are in a good place, but they don't feel like it.
Yeah,
The problem with that inflation, the price stayed where it was. It didn't come back down, and it won't
that's right.
unless we have a big recession or something, which we don't really want that either. So there's a lot of adjustment going on, but I think we need a new focus on what's going
Yeah, we sure do. We sure do.
on.
Well,
We'll just
there's been we've had about 1,300 people watching us live over on X. So I don't know if you're on X or not, but if you're not, get on X.
you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Yeah.
Sharon's out there, I think, on Instagram also. And
Okay.
I haven't been on X, but you can readily find me on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and you can see me there or on Facebook. And
Or just go to the website,
go to the website. Guess what? Go
excaliburtexas.com.
to the
Yeah.
website, leave your info, and I call you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on today. I'm going to wrap up the live stream. If you would stay with me, though, we'll chat for a few minutes afterwards. But thank you to everybody who's been watching and shared this out. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Dan, thank you. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Ken, as well. Thank you for the opportunity to be on.
Yeah, thank you. All right, hang on. I'll be right back with you. So we'll see you guys later, and everybody watching. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next year.